Yeah, we can see the red hair, freckles, lots of points and tips. hmm I also see a lot of spaces on her face, and I see a refined nose and probably thinner bones. So yes, I think she is sparkly and dreamy. Now, like that one woman we've seen two women now already with sparkly and dreamy. She's a little different. Yes, she has the sparkling energy, but she's not really showing it. She's not showing that fun, um, charming way. She seems like she's quite fiery. Where those other women we saw, they were fiery, but not in maybe a strong of fiery way. I think she's actually the fieriest of them yet. But I think what's happened is she's been so fiery as a kid and maybe as a teenager that she got scattered, that she was too fun, too exciting, and she had to put it all under wraps and tone it all down and shut her fire down and become very serious and become very direct. She's really trying to be very Woody here. Yes, she has some thicker eyebrows, yes, and she has some tendons probably we can see. But I think she's metallic and fiery. She's got the red phoenix and the white tiger for sure. But I think she's shut down her phoenix. She's not allowing that phoenix to fly freely. We want to get her back into her charming ways and to awaken that fire and to make sure the fluids stay nourished to protect her lungs. Trying to think what I see for her destiny. She's been so suppressed. I want her to really express herself. She's refined, and we can see this beautiful mouth. She really does enjoy life. She has some of that earthy quality there. Her eyes are very far apart. So when someone's eyes are further apart, it means they can see the bigger picture. They accept and allow other people's way of being. They are able to, yeah, like I said, accept others. They can tend to be a little scattered though. So people's eyes that are closer together, like my eyes tend to be pretty close together. That means I can really focus on something. I can take a task and really focus on it. But I can sometimes have a harder time seeing the bigger picture. So I'm working a lot at opening my perspective. But for her, perspective comes easy. Accepting and allowing others comes easy. So I know that she has the ability to accept and allow other people. She's been suppressed. She needs to bring that fire energy forward. She's very charming. I think she could work with people who have been suppressed and who need to express themselves and who have been maybe more on the wild side. So like that woman when we saw, if you can remember back to her, who I thought she would be great as an inspirational speaker for those people who are suicidal. I think she would be really good as an art teacher for people who have maybe lost their way in terms of maybe maybe ended up in with drugs, or maybe with you know, issues with the law, maybe been put in jail, or have been too fiery in a sense and have lost their direction for creativity. I think she would be a great teacher as helping people to do artwork to express themselves. That's what I think. And I think it's important that we help her to access her fire, to feel okay, to be charming and fun. And maybe I could see her working where people are throwing paint around, you know, doing that kind of artwork, where there's just, you know, in a studio where it's just kind of a little bit chaotic, where they can go into the studio and be chaotic and then start to refine themselves, because she's really good at refining herself. She has that metallic quality. So we want to make sure she accesses her fire, but keeps it regulated. So I think we should do the hussy points to regulate that fire, but use the source point to make sure she can access it. And then in September, make sure we're keeping her metal strong so she's able to keep her boundaries and not feel influenced by other people to say, you're being too fiery, or you're being too wild. I want her to get into a place where she can be wild, that's contained. So remember, the fire and metal can be at odds. But if we have a beautiful container for that fire, so I see that as her art studio or as her classroom studio, that is a great place for her to just go wild and just, have paint that's flying around and people doing finger painting, or that might be more tactile. For her, it's more like, it could even be singing. Maybe they're singing while they're doing their art too, because fire can be about using the voice, and same with the lungs, using the voice. So I could see her maybe doing something that's incorporating like spoken word, but in a more free-form way, that's singing and using art. That is what it is. It's singing. It's actually, I think, instead of using tactile things, because that is earthy, which she can use a little bit because she has that big mouth, that bigger lips with her mouth. I think it's singing and shouting and also doing this expression that way. That's what it is, I think, for her. So yes, it's artistic, but it's maybe, yes, you could use some like paints and this kind of stuff, because color, that's really nice to get the color, but singing at the same time. So that could be a new thing for her, singing and painting, and helping kids or adults that need to allow themselves to get that energy out. I was at I live in Oregon, and that's in the west coast of the United States, and I think I mentioned this before, in the valley. And there are, here historically in the United States, of course, there were indigenous people that lived here. They've been called Native Americans, but they're really indigenous Americans, and they have nations. And some people would say they're Indians or Native American tribes, but the real correct word is indigenous nations. And so there's quite a few indigenous nations still actively going here in Oregon, and they have what's called a powwow, and they still call it powwow. So I think that's okay to say it's powwow. And I went to this powwow, and at the powwow, there's all these different indigenous groups that come together, all these different nations that come together to celebrate their heritage, and they show their wares. They have all sorts of art that they bring, and they do dancing. They also do drumming, and they have maybe 6 or 10 people around this big drum, and they're drumming on this drum. And then they start going into these different animal sounds, like a hawk, wow, or a buffalo, hoo, 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 or doing these different sounds that are emulating the animals of nature. And when I was there watching this with my youngest, we were watching this, and I turned to my kid. They're non-binary, so their pronouns are they, them. So I turned to Julian. I said, Julian, look at this. Like, these people are able to be really wild and crazy. I mean, not crazy, but really express themselves in this really wild type energy, but it's within a space that is okay. For a lot of Western culture people, if we go crazy, we get put in jail because we're doing something that's not, accepted socially. But in their culture, they're able to do this kind of wild-like behavior that's okay. It's part of the social network. So they have a way to express that wildness. So I think she would be a great person to help those folks who want to be wild, but did it in a way that was not productive, that was going against the law. She could have this space, this studio where people are, doing animal sounds and throwing paint around. That's what I see her doing. and she would be able to have that fun way about her.